Your windows have an R value of only 1 to 3. In comparison, properly insulated walls usually range from R13 to R19, while ceilings can reach R30 to R60. That means windows are 10 to 20 times weaker than your walls and up to 60 times weaker than your ceiling when it comes to holding heat inside your home. Now think about how many windows most houses have. The average American home contains around 8 to 12 windows, adding up to nearly 80 to 120 square feet of exposed glass. Every single one of those windows acts like a thermal weak spot where expensive heat slowly escapes into the cold night air. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, windows are responsible for nearly 25 to 30% of residential heating and cooling energy loss. If a family spends around $2,000 a year on heating, nearly $500 to $600 of that cost disappears through the windows alone. Across the United States, this problem leads to almost $35 billion in wasted residential energy every year. The glass industry offers one expensive answer: replace the windows completely. Modern double-pane and triple-pane windows come with low emissivity coatings and argon gas insulation. They sound impressive, but the price is shocking. Installation usually costs between $300 and $700 per window, pushing the total for a normal home to around $8,000 to $15,000. Here is the surprising part most companies avoid mentioning. Even with those expensive upgrades, the energy savings often take 15 to 30 years to recover the cost. In many cases, the payback period is longer than the warranty on the new windows themselves. But there is a hidden solution almost nobody talks about. A method based on simple physics discovered back in the 1800s can create a very similar improvement for almost zero cost. The secret is dead air insulation, and the setup is incredibly simple. Just a thin sheet of clear plastic film stretched tightly across the window frame. It may sound too basic to work, but the science behind it is powerful because it targets all three major forms of heat loss at the same time. The first problem is conduction. This happens when heat travels directly through the glass from the warm side to the cold side. Glass has a thermal conductivity of about 1.0 watts per meter per Kelvin, which makes it a surprisingly poor insulator. In fact, heat moves through glass nearly 4 to 7 times faster than it moves through the same thickness of wood. A single sheet of glass creates a direct thermal bridge between the warm air inside your home and the freezing temperatures outside. Heat moves through that glass constantly, even when you cannot see or feel it happening. But conduction is only the beginning of the problem. The second source of heat loss is convection, and this is where things become even more interesting. Inside your home, warm air naturally touches the cold surface of the window glass. As soon as that air cools down, it becomes heavier and starts sinking toward the floor. At the same time, warmer air moves in to replace it, touches the glass, cools again, and sinks as well. This creates a continuous convection loop that quietly pulls heat out of your room every second. That invisible air cycle works like a hidden pump, constantly carrying warmth from your living space directly to the cold glass surface. You can actually feel this effect yourself. Stand near a single-pane window on a winter night and hold your hand close to it. Even without touching the glass, the area feels cold because warm air is being pulled away from your skin by the moving convection current. Then comes the third type of heat loss: radiation. Every warm object around you releases infrared energy. Your body, furniture, walls, floors, and heating system are all sending out invisible infrared waves throughout the room. When those infrared waves hit a standard glass window, a large portion of the energy escapes outside. Regular glass has an emissivity of around 0.84, meaning it absorbs most incoming infrared radiation and then re-emits much of that heat toward the colder outdoor environment. This creates a constant stream of invisible radiative heat loss. Now here is the part most people never hear about. A simple plastic film can attack all three of these problems at once. When a clear plastic sheet is stretched tightly across the inside of a window frame, it forms a sealed pocket of air between the plastic and the glass. That small gap, usually only half an inch to 1 inch wide, becomes the secret behind the entire system. Air itself is actually an excellent insulator, but only when it stays completely still. Trapped air has a thermal conductivity of just 0.024 watts per meter per Kelvin. Compare that to glass at 1.0 or aluminum at an incredible 205. In simple terms, still air insulates around 42 times better than glass and thousands of times better than aluminum. The real advantage comes from stopping the air from moving. The plastic film seals the gap tightly, preventing convection currents from forming between the warm side and the cold glass. Without that airflow, heat can no longer circulate freely and escape the way it normally would. Once the plastic film is sealed in place, the air trapped between the film and the glass can no longer move freely. That still layer of air becomes a powerful insulation barrier. A half-inch air gap provides an R value of about 1.0, while a 1-inch gap can reach nearly 1.5. When this extra insulation layer is added to a standard single-pane window, the setup begins to function much like a basic double-pane window. In many cases, the overall window R value can nearly double. That one simple upgrade can reduce heat loss through the treated window by around 50%. For homeowners losing $500 to $600 every year through inefficient windows, cutting that heat loss in half could save roughly $250 to $300 annually. And the surprising part is how little it costs to make it happen. You can build the system for almost nothing using leftover packaging plastic, kitchen stretch wrap, or painter's drop cloth material. Even professional window insulation kits usually cost only $3 to $10 per window. There are two common ways to install the system, and both work extremely well. The first method uses adhesive shrink film. This is the commercial version sold in most hardware stores as a window insulation kit, typically costing around $3 to $5 per window. Inside the kit, you usually get a sheet of clear plastic film and a roll of double-sided tape. The installation process is simple. First, place the tape around the edges of the window frame, not directly on the glass, but on the frame itself. Next, press the plastic film onto the tape while pulling it tight across the opening. At this stage, the film may look wrinkled, but that is where the final step changes everything. Use a regular hairdryer on a low heat setting and slowly warm the surface of the plastic. As the heat spreads, the polyolefin film shrinks evenly, removing the wrinkles and tightening like a drum. Once finished, the surface becomes smooth, clear, and almost invisible from inside the room. The second option is a simple DIY plastic sheet method. Buy a roll of clear 2mm polyethylene sheet from any hardware store. A 25-foot roll usually costs around $5 and can cover 8 to 10 average-sized windows. Cut each plastic sheet about 4 inches larger than the window frame. Then attach it using masking tape, painter's tape, or cloth tape while pulling the material as tight as possible. This version may not look quite as polished as the shrink film method, but the insulation performance stays nearly the same. The real magic comes from the trapped air layer, not from how perfect or smooth the plastic appears. The entire installation process takes surprisingly little time, usually around 5 minutes per window, including cutting the plastic, applying the tape, and shrinking the film into place. A typical home with 10 windows can often be finished in less than an hour. But this is where the system becomes even more powerful. The real results appear when you combine the plastic film with other low-cost insulation methods. One of the best upgrades is heavy thermal curtains. These curtains contain insulated lining material, and when paired with the plastic air gap, they create a 3-layer defense system: the glass, the trapped dead air space, and the insulated curtain itself. Together, this setup can reach a combined R value of 4 to 6, approaching the performance of costly triple-pane windows. For the best results, the curtains should extend all the way to the floor and overlap the window frame by at least 3 inches on each side. This blocks cold air from circulating around the edges and stealing heat from the room. Another highly effective option is thermal cellular shades, often called honeycomb blinds. Their internal honeycomb structure traps extra pockets of air, adding even more insulation to the window system. A double-cell honeycomb shade can contribute an additional R value of 2 to 3. When combined with the plastic film layer, the total window insulation can climb to an R value of 5 to 7. These shades usually cost between $30 and $80 per window, but they often last 10 to 15 years, making them a long-term improvement. Exterior storm windows use the same trapped air principle but place the insulating layer outside the original glass. When an exterior storm window is combined with interior plastic film, The result is essentially a triple glaze system with two separate dead air gaps. That combination can deliver a total R-value of 4 to 5. Exterior storm windows generally cost between $50 and $150 per window and can remain effective for 20 to 30 years. Still, the most affordable high-impact setup is usually plastic film paired with heavy curtains. For a house with 10 windows, the total cost may only reach around $80 to $100 if thrift store curtains are used along with inexpensive insulation film. The savings, however, can be dramatic. Depending on climate conditions, heating fuel prices, and the quality of the original windows, homeowners can reduce annual energy costs by roughly $300 to $800. In colder regions, the numbers become even more shocking. In places like Minnesota, where winter temperatures regularly fall to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, heat loss through old windows can exceed $1,200 every year. Adding plastic film and insulated curtains can cut those losses by 40 to 50%, saving nearly $500 to $600 annually. That means a $100 upgrade can often pay for itself in just 2 months. Over 10 years, the same setup may save between $4,800 and $6,000. Across a typical 30-year stay in a home, total savings can climb to $14,000 to $18,000. Now compare that to full window replacement. Installing brand new windows often costs between $12,000 and $15,000, yet the long-term energy savings are frequently very similar. The physics does not change. The expensive option and the low-cost option both rely on the same basic principle: trapped air slowing heat transfer. The window replacement industry is worth nearly $65 billion globally, and much of that business depends on one belief: that improving energy efficiency always requires replacing the glass itself. But the glass is only part of the story. The real issues are convection currents, radiative heat loss, and the lack of trapped insulating air, problems that can often be reduced dramatically with something as simple as a sheet of plastic film. Newton's law of cooling does not care about branding, luxury materials, or marketing claims. Heat always moves from warm areas to cold areas, and the speed of that transfer depends entirely on temperature difference and thermal resistance. When you increase the thermal resistance of a window by trapping a layer of still air, the rate of heat loss drops automatically. That is not marketing hype or personal opinion. It is basic physics and measurable mathematics. But radiative heat loss is more complex than conduction or convection, and understanding it reveals why windows waste so much energy in the first place. Every object with a temperature above absolute zero emits thermal radiation. Your body, at around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, continuously releases nearly 100 watts of infrared energy. Your furniture, walls, floors, and heating system also emit infrared radiation based on their temperature and surface properties. Unlike convection currents or direct heat conduction, this energy moves as electromagnetic radiation. It travels in straight lines at the speed of light until another surface absorbs it. Here is where windows become a hidden problem. Glass allows visible light to pass through easily, but infrared radiation behaves very differently. Standard window glass has an emissivity of about 0.84 in the infrared spectrum. That means it absorbs roughly 84% of the thermal radiation that strikes it. After absorbing that heat, the glass re-emits the energy from both sides of the window. Since one side faces the cold outdoors, a large portion of that heat escapes outside, creating constant radiative energy loss. Modern low emissivity, or low E, windows were designed specifically to reduce this problem. Manufacturers coat the glass with an ultra-thin metallic layer, usually silver or tin oxide, which reflects infrared radiation while still allowing visible light to enter the room. These coatings can lower the glass emissivity from 0.84 down to around 0.04 to 0.15, reducing radiative heat loss by as much as 80 to 95%. But here is the surprising detail most homeowners never hear about. Ordinary aluminum foil has an emissivity of only 0.03 to 0.05, even lower than many commercial low-E coatings. Of course, foil is not transparent, so it cannot replace a window, but it can still be extremely useful inside a home. For example, Placing aluminum foil behind furniture positioned against exterior walls creates a simple radiant barrier that reflects heat back into the room instead of allowing it to escape into the wall. The effect becomes even stronger behind radiators. A sheet of kitchen foil attached to cardboard behind a radiator can improve heating efficiency by roughly 5 to 10% by bouncing radiant heat back toward the living space. The financial side of window insulation becomes even more convincing when you look at long-term costs. Most replacement windows last around 15 to 25 years before the seals begin failing. Once those seals break, the argon gas inside double-pane windows slowly leaks out, reducing insulation performance and often requiring complete replacement. Plastic film insulation works very differently. The yearly cost is usually only $3 to $5 per window. Even if the film is replaced every single year for 25 years, the total expense stays around $75 to $125 per window. Compare that to spending $300 to $700 per window on replacements that may still need to be replaced again later. In many situations, the film delivers nearly 80% of the thermal benefit for only a small fraction of the cost. And unlike full window replacement, the installation requires no contractor, no permit, and no structural modification. The science is straightforward. The economics are equally clear. A sheet of plastic and a roll of tape installed in winter and removed in spring can save more heating energy per dollar spent than almost any other home upgrade. The payback period is often measured in weeks instead of years. The skill level required is almost zero. All you need are scissors, tape, and a few minutes of work. At the core, the physics is exactly the same principle used in expensive multi-pane windows. Trapped dead air sealed between transparent surfaces to slow heat transfer. And this idea is not limited to winter. In hot climates, the same concept works in reverse. Reflective window film, which is essentially plastic sheeting coated with a thin metallic layer, can be applied to the outside of windows to reflect solar heat before it enters the house. A simple $4 roll of reflective film can reduce solar heat gain by 50 to 70%, producing results similar to expensive solar control glass at only a tiny fraction of the price. So the real question is simple. How much money are your windows costing you right now?